On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Jeannie Carson, a British-born actress and singer best known for her work in mid-20th century film, television, and musical theater, passed away from natural causes at the age of 91. While her death did not provoke global headlines or alter the trajectory of history, it marked the quiet closing of a chapter in entertainment history, one rooted in post-war optimism, the golden age of musicals, and the rise of television as a dominant cultural force. Carson rose to fame in the 1950s, an era when the entertainment industry was booming with charm, wit, and lighthearted escapism. Her career reflected the values of her time: modest glamour, vocal talent, and a wholesome image that resonated with audiences seeking joy after the hardships of World War II. Unlike many celebrities whose personal turmoil played out in the public eye, Carson maintained a relatively private life. Her peaceful death reflected the understated grace with which she lived, standing in contrast to the sensationalized or tragic ends often associated with Hollywood figures. Though her passing did not incite mass mourning, it served as a moment of remembrance for those who valued the artistry and innocence of mid-century entertainment. The immediate consequence of her death was not historical upheaval, but reflection, a gentle reminder of an era now distant, when entertainment felt simpler, lighter, and deeply tied to stagecraft and song. Carson's legacy, while quieter than some of her contemporaries, speaks to how we remember figures who brought joy rather than controversy. Her memory is preserved not in statues or history books, but in archival footage, fan nostalgia, and retrospectives of classic entertainment. Her contributions to musical theater and television are reminders of a time when performance was about uplifting audiences and celebrating talent rather than scandal. Her passing, like many of her generation, invites us to consider mortality through the lens of cultural memory, how even those not enshrined in national myth remain vital threads in the fabric of collective history. Through reruns, YouTube clips, and cast recordings, Carson lives on, illustrating how art becomes a vessel for remembrance. In commemorating such figures, we affirm that even quiet legacies deserve reverence, that the joy they brought to others is itself a lasting kind of immortality. Cilla Black, the beloved British singer and television presenter, passed away on August 1, 2015, at the age of 72. Her death, caused by a stroke following a fall at her villa in Spain, was sudden and unexpected, shocking a nation that had long considered her a cherished part of its cultural fabric. Though natural in origin, the tragic circumstances, an accidental fall leading to a fatal condition, brought to light the vulnerability even icons face in the quiet moments of their later years. Cilla's passing marked more than the loss of a celebrity. It symbolized the end of an era. She first rose to prominence in the 1960s, part of the famed Mersey Beat scene alongside the Beatles, with whom she was close friends. A working-class girl from Liverpool who became a chart-topping singer and later the queen of Saturday night TV, her life embodied post-war Britain's optimism and class mobility. Her success story reflected the dreams of a generation who saw in her an authentic voice, lively, witty, and relatable. The immediate reaction to her death was a wave of public grief and national tributes. British media outlets halted regular programming to honor her, and Liverpool flew its flags at half-mast. Her funeral was attended by notable figures across music, television, and politics, and broadcast widely. These acts of mourning illustrated how deeply interwoven she was with the identity of modern British entertainment. Cilla Black's death, while not a seismic political or historical moment, did amplify her legacy. It prompted retrospectives that traced her trajectory from coat-check girl at the Cavern Club to a household name. Her life story has since been dramatized, her music reissued, and her image celebrated as part of Britain's cultural heritage. Her passing reflects how mortality intersects with memory and nostalgia. Cilla's death reminded the public of the fleeting nature of stardom and the enduring power of authenticity. We immortalize figures like her through documentaries, biopics, plaques, and tributes, not because of scandal or tragedy, but because they made us feel connected and seen. In remembering Cilla Black, we confront a gentler side of fame, one rooted in joy, laughter, and the unpretentious charm that can outlast even the most dramatic headlines. Her death invites reflection on how legacy is often defined not by how loudly a life ends, but by how deeply it was felt. Naomi Sims, often celebrated as the first black supermodel, died of breast cancer on August 1, 2009, at the age of 61. Her death from natural causes, after a long private battle with illness, came quietly, contrasting with the bold, barrier-breaking presence she held in the fashion world. Sims's passing marked the end of a life that defied convention, redefined beauty standards, and blazed a trail for countless others in an industry long dominated by Eurocentric ideals. Sims rose to fame in the late 1960s, a time of social upheaval and civil rights activism. Her appearance on the cover of Ladies' Home Journal in 1968 was groundbreaking. It was one of the first times a black woman graced the cover of a mainstream American magazine. In 1969, she became the first black model to appear on the cover of Life, a publication once emblematic of white American middle-class values. Sims was more than a model. She was a symbol of representation and dignity during a pivotal moment in America's racial reckoning. Her death highlighted a paradox of her era. While black visibility in media had increased during her lifetime, the systemic issues of inequality in healthcare, beauty, and legacy still loomed large. Sims's choice to retreat from the spotlight after the height of her modeling career and focus on business, founding a successful wig company tailored for black women, reflected her understanding that empowerment also meant creating spaces of ownership, not just visibility. The immediate response to her death included heartfelt tributes from the fashion industry and retrospectives that recognized her as a pioneer. However, the lack of widespread public mourning compared to other figures revealed how easily black women's contributions can be overlooked outside activist or fashion circles. Still, in the years since, her influence has grown posthumously, with fashion historians and cultural commentators acknowledging her foundational role in diversifying beauty standards. Naomi Sims' life and death reflect humanity's evolving understanding of power and mortality, not just through fame, but through cultural impact. She is immortalized through photography, memoirs, and the paths cleared for today's models of color. In honoring her, we are reminded that legacy is not only about being remembered, but about changing what is possible for others. Sims's death didn't mark an end. It underscored the beginning of a broader, ongoing transformation in how we define beauty and worth. Corazon Aquino, the first female president of the Philippines and a key figure in the restoration of democracy after years of dictatorship, died of colon cancer on August 1, 2009, at the age of 76. Her death was mourned not only in the Philippines but around the world, marking the end of an era that symbolized peaceful revolution, moral leadership, and the power of ordinary citizens to reclaim their freedom. Aquino rose to prominence in the wake of tragedy. The 1983 assassination of her husband, Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., a leading critic of Ferdinand Marcos, transformed her from a reluctant political figure into the face of resistance. In 1986, she led the People Power Revolution, a non-violent uprising that overthrew Marcos's authoritarian regime. Her victory in the snap elections, though contested by Marcos, was ultimately recognized after massive public protests forced the dictator into exile. Aquino's presidency marked the rebirth of democratic institutions in a country long silenced by martial law. Her death from natural causes came during a time of political disillusionment in the Philippines. In many ways, it reminded the nation of a time when leadership was defined by integrity and sacrifice, not personal gain. The public outpouring of grief, thousands lining the streets during her funeral procession, candlelit vigils, and widespread media tributes, spoke to the profound emotional connection Filipinos had with Aquino as a symbol of hope and moral courage. Aquino's passing also had immediate political resonance. It revitalized interest in the Aquino legacy, contributing to the election of her son, Benigno Noynoy Aquino III, as president in 2010. Her death, thus, not only reinforced her personal legacy, but reignited a broader national conversation about governance, democracy, and accountability. Her story illustrates the enduring power of moral leadership in a world often marked by violence and cynicism. Unlike the dramatic assassinations or violent downfalls of other historical figures, Aquino's death was quiet, but deeply symbolic. It reminded people that profound change can be achieved without bloodshed, and that legacy is often built not by force, but by principle. Corazon Aquino is immortalized through monuments, history books, school curricula, and, most powerfully, the collective memory of a nation that once reclaimed its voice through her courage. Her life and death reflect how we commemorate those who choose the path of peace over power, and how memory can serve as a guiding light for future generations. Marie Trintignant, a celebrated French actress known for her emotional depth and artistic lineage, died tragically on August 1, 2003, from a violent assault at the hands of her partner, musician Bertrand Cantat. Her death, at age 41, shocked France and ignited a nationwide conversation about domestic violence, gender inequality, and justice for women in the public eye. Trintignant came from a prestigious acting family. Her father, Jean-Louis Trintignant, was a revered actor, and her mother, Nadine Trintignant, a respected director. Marie herself had built a reputation for nuanced, often intense performances across film and television. She was in Lithuania filming a biopic about writer Colette, a woman known for challenging societal norms when the fatal assault occurred. The irony was chilling. Trintignant was portraying a feminist icon while enduring the ultimate form of gendered violence in her personal life. Her death was not only a personal tragedy but a cultural reckoning. At the time, domestic violence was often minimized or dismissed, particularly in high-profile relationships. But Trintignant's case was highly publicized. The French public, long known for separating art from the artist, could not ignore the brutal reality behind her death. The media coverage and public reaction spurred discussions about systemic failures to protect women and the leniency often shown to abusers, especially those with fame or influence. Cantat was convicted of manslaughter and served only 4 years in prison, a sentence many considered shockingly light. The aftermath of Trintignant's death led to increased awareness of domestic abuse and eventually helped pave the way for legislative changes in France, including stronger protections for victims and expanded public education campaigns about intimate partner violence. Marie Trintignant's death amplified her legacy in ways that transcended cinema. While her body of work remains a testament to her talent, her story is now inseparable from a broader cultural movement. Her image has been invoked in campaigns against domestic violence, and documentaries and writings have preserved her memory not only as an artist, but as a symbol of lives lost to silence and neglect. In death, Trintignant's name became a rallying cry, highlighting how society remembers not just the beauty of a life lived, but the injustice of a life cut short. Through remembrance, we strive to ensure that such tragedies are neither forgotten nor repeated. Eva Bartok, a Hungarian-born actress whose striking beauty and captivating screen presence lit up European cinema in the 1950s and 1960s, died of natural causes on August 1, 1998, in London. Her passing at the age of 71 marked the end of a complex and often turbulent life shaped by war, fame, and reinvention. Though she died quietly, Bartok's story is emblematic of the resilience of women in mid-20th century Europe, a continent still recovering from the ravages of conflict while embracing modern ideals of glamour, independence, and personal freedom. Born in Budapest in 1927, Bartok's early life was shaped by the trauma of World War II. Forced into a marriage at a young age to a Nazi officer to avoid a concentration camp, she later fled the relationship and eventually found solace in acting. Her rise to stardom across German, British, and Italian cinema reflected the shifting cultural landscape of post-war Europe, where old hierarchies were being dismantled and new icons of femininity and modernity were emerging. Despite her fame, Bartok's personal life was fraught with instability. She endured several high-profile marriages, including one to German actor Kurt Jürgens, and lived under the scrutiny of the tabloids. She made headlines in 1956 after giving birth to a daughter, later claiming that Frank Sinatra was the child's father, an assertion that added mystique to her legacy, whether proven or not. Her death in the late 1990s came at a time when many of her contemporaries had faded from the public eye. Yet the quiet nature of her passing stood in stark contrast to the vivid roles she portrayed on screen and the tumultuous life she led off it. While she did not provoke the kind of public mourning reserved for Hollywood legends, her departure underscored the fleeting nature of fame and the often unacknowledged contributions of international actresses who shaped global cinema outside of the American studio system. Eva Bartok's legacy survives not through grand monuments or biographies, but through the ethereal presence she left on film. In her, we see the complexities of identity: refugee, survivor, star, mother. Her life and death remind us that memory is as much about the quiet moments as the public triumphs. We immortalize such figures through the preservation of their art, the telling of their stories, and the acknowledgement of their courage in the face of adversity. Frances Farmer, the brilliant yet tormented American actress of the 1930s and 1940s, died on August 1, 1970, from esophageal cancer at the age of 56. Her death, quiet and largely overlooked by the mainstream media, stood in stark contrast to the tumultuous life she had lived, a life marked by extraordinary talent, institutional abuse, and a painful public unraveling. Farmer's passing, though natural in cause, symbolized the cost of individuality and nonconformity in an era that often punished women who defied societal norms. Rising to fame in Hollywood's golden age, Farmer was a gifted performer with a striking screen presence, yet she was never content to be molded into the image of the docile starlet. Her refusal to conform to the rigid expectations of the studio system, combined with outspoken political views and erratic behavior, likely tied to undiagnosed mental health issues, led to a steep fall from grace. In the 1940s, she was committed to psychiatric institutions, where she endured inhumane treatment, including forced medication and, reportedly, lobotomy, though the latter remains disputed. Farmer's life became a cautionary tale about the price of rebellion in a system designed to silence dissent. At a time when the ideals of femininity were rigidly defined, her emotional struggles and confrontational stance were labeled as madness. The institutions that were meant to offer care instead became instruments of control, reflecting the broader societal discomfort with female autonomy and mental illness. The immediate impact of Farmer's death was muted. She had been largely forgotten by Hollywood. Yet her story gained renewed interest in the decades that followed, especially with the release of the 1982 biopic Frances, starring Jessica Lange. Her tragic arc, rising star, institutionalized rebel, misunderstood genius, captured the imagination of a new generation and transformed her into a symbol of resistance against oppressive systems. Frances Farmer's death forces us to confront how society deals with nonconformity and mental health. Her legacy, resurrected through film, biographies, and even music, underscores the power of storytelling in reclaiming forgotten voices. In remembering her, we reflect on how we mythologize suffering and the thin line between genius and madness. Ultimately, Farmer is immortalized not just for her performances, but for the broader dialogue her life and death continues to inspire about freedom, identity, and the costs of silence. Anne Stewart, Queen of Great Britain and Ireland, died on August 1, 1714, at Kensington Palace after years of deteriorating health at the age of 49. Her death, though from natural causes, likely complications from gout and erysipelas, marked the end of the Stewart dynasty and triggered a profound political shift that helped redefine the British monarchy. Anne's reign was deeply entwined with the turbulent politics of succession and religious identity. As a devout Anglican and the last monarch of the House of Stewart, her greatest challenge was securing a Protestant heir in an era still haunted by fears of Catholic absolutism. Tragically, despite 17 pregnancies, none of her children survived to adulthood. The death of her son, Prince William, Duke of Gloucester, in 1700, left the throne without a direct successor, creating a constitutional crisis. Parliament responded with the Act of Settlement in 1701, ensuring the crown would pass to the Protestant House of Hanover, bypassing numerous Catholic claimants. When Anne died in 1714, the crown passed to her distant cousin, George I of Hanover. Her passing effectively ended the rule of a native English dynasty and ushered in a new era of constitutional monarchy, where the power of the crown steadily declined in favor of parliamentary authority. This moment signaled a turning point. The monarchy became more symbolic, less absolute, and increasingly bound to the will of elected government, a major development in the evolution of modern democracy. Though Anne's reign is often overshadowed by those of her predecessors and successors, her death marked a historical hinge between dynastic rule and institutional governance. In retrospect, her personal tragedy, losing all her children, was also a national one, as it forced a succession crisis that ultimately transformed the monarchy's role. Today, Queen Anne is remembered through architecture, Queen Anne-style buildings, art, and literature, but not always with the recognition her influence merits. Her reign helped shape the United Kingdom's political structure, and her death underscores how personal misfortune can alter the course of nations. Anne Stewart's legacy reminds us that power is both fragile and deeply human. In remembering monarchs like her, not for their triumphs alone but for their trials, we better understand our collective journey through history, mortality, and the search for enduring legacy.